Hey guys, a few months ago I got a striped knee tarantula. I have named him Shadra. Today I'm going to introduce this species and give a little bit about its care and the adventure I have had with this critter. Let's start off with what I keep him in. I'm just going to assume it's a him since I do not have a molt to attempt to sex it, and I am not ready to handle this kind of critter just yet. But I have him in a 10-gallon tank. I piled a lot of coconut fiber into a hill so he has plenty of space to burrow, and man has he been busy. I placed a moss hide that I bought for my geckos but never ended up using. I finally found a use for it. He has placed webbing around the entrance of the moss hide. I do occasionally catch him hanging out in there. I placed a hide and slightly buried it at the base of the hill to encourage the tea to start there, and sure enough, that is exactly what he did. He dug out quite the tunnel and placed multiple entrances to his domain. I kept coming back every few days and it got deeper and deeper. I have never actually seen him doing anything at all. However, like I said, he is very busy. He just keeps extending his cavern. I placed one last hide that I made out of an old takeout bowl that I cut a hole in. At first he covered it up completely, then he uncovered it. I guess he couldn't make his mind up on what to do with it, but I don't really think he uses it. I may pull it out one day. I replace the water in his water bowl every few days. One thing to note for water, if you are using a cup like mine, you are going to want to place some stones or something to help your tea if they happen to be a little derpy and decide to go the cricket route and drown themselves. The stones will help save their life. Now let's talk a little bit about the spider itself. Striped knee tarantula are terrestrial New World teas. Terrestrial meaning that they mostly live on the ground or in burrows. New World meaning originating in the Western Hemisphere. And this species in particular, Aphanopelma semani, the Costa Rican zebra tarantula, comes from, you guessed it, Costa Rica, and can be found in areas in Central America. New World teas can flick the hairs that cover their body into the air when they feel threatened. These hairs are called urticating hairs. They stick into the skin and cause irritation, some cases being more severe than others. Some people are more prone to these. Getting these hairs in the eyes is not a pleasant experience. I have not handled mine yet, but Google has shown me just how bad it can be, so I have a little bit of respect for the animal. I need to learn more about it before handling it and learn its body language better. Anyways, about body language. While mine has never shown me any aggression, they typically hike their legs on their abdomen and raise their front legs to make themselves look larger and more imposing. At this point, they are ready to kick hairs. While my tea is still quite small, he still scares me a tiny bit. He is quite skittish, and I understand this is a hallmark of the species, and they are very fast. I've seen him dart back into his burrow when I approach the enclosure. I only get a glimpse of him outside. The species seems to stay underground for most of their time, and seemingly continuously expands their cavern. The glass walls are probably the only thing stopping him from having an extremely extensive burrow. It's quite amazing. Seeing this makes me want to add 3 or 4 more inches of substrate to allow my tea a little enrichment in its life, as he can make his burrow the way he wants. He has made multiple entrances and exits. Since this species is tropical, they prefer temps closing in on 80 degrees and mildly high humidity. So when I first got the tea, I had it in one of my typical mealworm or superworm bins, 1 square foot, 6 inches high. I made it up similar to the 10-gallon tank. However, one night I was extremely exhausted and forgot to put the lid on the container. And guess who got out? Guess who took a stroll through my house? Guess who got found by my girlfriend in the bathroom? My tarantula. I was irresponsible and I could have gotten one of my cats harmed or the tea harmed, so I changed the enclosure completely. I suggest keeping a lid on it and have high walls. Silly mistake on my part. So if you ignore me letting it out, this is what I have experienced with this tea. I have figured due to his size that he would be eating more often. However, it seems to be about every 2 to 3 weeks he wants a superworm. He otherwise ignores it. He does not respond to it. I will not leave them in the enclosure due to hearing some owners losing their teas to a superworm consuming them while they molt. Since superworms will eat nearly anything, especially a defenseless tea, and they can burrow, so they can easily get lost, I always hold the worms in the tongue and never place it down unless I know the tea is gonna get it. I lost a discoid roach once in the enclosure. I want to assume it's been eaten, but I simply couldn't find it. It was a nymph. I'm not overly worried about it. I don't think it'll harm my spider, but we'll see. I miss the enclosure on one side once a week. This will be completely dependent on what you keep your animal in and how much airflow it has and where you live. There's a lot of variables. Try not to let the enclosure get too dry. Feeding can be difficult, at least with how I have my setup. However, he did leave an exit for me that is right above where he normally sits. so I can entice him with a small superworm. Sometimes he responds, most of the time he doesn't, but when he takes it, he takes it. The prey seems to die fast, or at least be completely immobilized due to the tea's venom, which poses no real threat to people as it is quite weak compared to other small spiders and first world teas. As I said earlier, I do not leave food in the enclosure. Mealworms and superworms pose a threat, and I rarely let them leave the tongs. So guys, that's all I have today. I apologize for the length of time between videos. I'm in a dry spell to figuring out what kind of content to make. I did try to do waxworms, however, I failed. I did get moths, but for whatever reason they didn't mate. I'm not really sure why. I'll probably try that again at one point, but if you're curious as to why that video never came out, that's why it didn't come out. But if you guys could leave me some suggestions for videos, that would be great help. If you have it in your critter loving heart, give me a like, a subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more videos like this. And from the Gizzards and I, have a great and wonderful day.